Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for setting up our meeting. Good afternoon.
Hey. So I know Dave said he's not going to show because he's in Ghana. Terry and Elizabeth might be here a little late today. I know Elizabeth is definitely going to be here late. Well, Neely said she wouldn't be here. Trying to think of who else. I'm drawing a blank on that right now. But yes. How's everyone doing?
Good.
Good.
Can't complain. You look very springy, Kate.
Really?
Yeah. Well, meanwhile, I'm in my cold basement where it keeps an even 60.
Yeah, I just so where I teach is just down the street from where I live, so I have the pleasure of walking to and from work, and it's kind of warm out right now, so yeah, it's pretty nice. It is beautiful out there. Just so you all know, I do have to leave right at 5:30 today, but I have a feeling this won't take that long, especially since we have another meeting in less than a week. So yeah, but I know we also don't have full quorum here yet. So does anyone have any questions or things to chat about that you'd like me to add to the agenda? I can throw that in the chat.
Not me.
That is okay.
We have had a couple of good transactions go through. I'm putting them into the budget, but a number of the folks have gone and requested money from the funds that we offer. I'm looking for if I can give a short version. We the $1,000 for Winneba. We did a grant payment to Poggio. We did a grant payment to Winneba. Both of those were from 2020. And then we had a mix up with Cliff Maxwell, who is one of the older or previous committee members that Wix billed him on by accident.
Oh, right. I remember those emails. Yeah.
And it looks like they billed him last year too. That was prior to me joining, so I thought that had been taken care of, but apparently not. So we reimbursed him for that as well.
Gotcha. Let me just check my phone real quick. Sometimes Elizabeth will call me before these because she doesn't get the link. So I just want to double check that. Be right back.
Hello, Amanda.
Hey, Amanda.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon.
All right. We are not quite at a quorum yet, are we? I think we need 8. Can we start the meeting even without a quorum as long as we're not voting on anything?
I believe you have enough to start the meeting.
Really? All right. We don't have a secretary though. Would somebody be willing to jot down some notes as we go along today? I'll include the agenda in the chat in case y'all don't have it. There's the agenda for today. Anybody be willing to just jot down what we discuss in this session?
I can take a turn taking notes, but I might have to break away later in our meeting. But if we really end up at 5:30, we might be.
Yeah, let's make it a goal to be done by And also, I just realized I put April's agenda in there, so apologies. Here's May, because it is actually May. There we go. That's the right one. That's the one we need. Sweet. Well, let's get started. I know Elizabeth had some things to share and she's not here yet, so I told her I would not bring up any of her points until she got here. But take a chance to check out our April minutes, and if you read through them and they look okay to you, you can motion to approve said minutes. Note that there was an amendment or an update to these minutes on section 8. I had Elizabeth write this up. Just as student exchanges, that there are no updates regarding the resumption of student exchanges with Basel and Sloan. Yeah, so just make sure you make note of that update, but take a peek at these notes, and if they look good to you, I will make a motion. What was that?
I just want to make sure that we had the update from Huawei in here, but it looks like on the May agenda, you're doing that.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah, I can do that. I make a motion to approve last month's minutes.
Sorry, I'm seeing March minutes when I click on the link from the agenda. Am I looking in the wrong document?
Did I put the March ones in there? Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. Look at me. Here are, I have the, there we go. Yes, no, I do have them pulled up right here. Oh, this all makes sense now. Yes. Okay. Apologies. We're getting this together here. All right, the April minutes are here. There they are.
Thanks, Kate.
You're welcome.
And so you won't actually need to adopt March's. That was adopted at the last meeting with the provision.
Thank you, Max.
To revise that one item.
Appreciate that. Thank you. All right, these are the actual minutes that Elizabeth took our last go around.
oh, interesting.
Does anyone see any issues or points of concern?
That's good.
Okay. Can I make a motion to approve these minutes from April?
I second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Oop, Damon, you're muted. Oh,
So Kate, did you make the motion?
I did.
Or you did, and Michael approved
Thanks,
or
Damon.
seconded. And it was unanimous.
Sweet. All right. Moving on. It is May 18th. Let's take a look here. So we can do some city rep updates. I believe Nana said he might be in Ghana at this point too, and I know Dave is as well. So I don't have anything to, I don't think does anyone have anything to report on Winneba or know anything of Winneba? I know that the trip is going on right now, which is very exciting. But that is all I know. Dave didn't mention anything in his email to me. Stella, do you have any updates on Poggio?
I am in Poggio right now, so I'm saying that I am going to meet with the people here after I finish the isolation. So maybe I can report to something also next time after I met with the mayor and everyone else.
Very cool. It must be very late there right now.
It's 10:40 p.m.
Oh man, we appreciate you coming and joining us this hour. Very cool. So that's interesting. So our Winneba rep is in Winneba, our Poggio rep is in Poggio. What a day. Oh my gosh. All right. Let's see. Elizabeth can talk about Besançon when she arrives. As far as Weiwei is concerned, that process is rolling along. I have recently been put in touch with 2 members of our community who are very interested in helping us with our Weiwei initiative and building some cool partnerships there. So I believe Erin, who is a recent graduate of UVA, will be joining the education committee next Monday to talk about just any thoughts, add to the discussion about education-based initiatives with Weiwei. And they are both interested in helping out with Sister City stuff in the future, particularly Erin. She also spoke about a friend of hers, Heather, who has done some grants work in the past. And let's see, I can see Elizabeth is trying to reach me. I don't know why. I'm not sure. Maybe Brian, if you're there. I know that Elizabeth Smiley never seems to get the emails for the links or doesn't have access to it. I'm not sure why, but I'm gonna send it to her now. It's so strange. Let's see.
The invitations are unique to each person. So
Yeah.
if you share yours, she'll come in with your name.
That's okay. I think we will know who's who. So.
And
Yeah.
I did resend that, so it could be UVA's blocking things or putting in the spam folder or something.
Yeah, that's possible. All right, let me see here if I can just find your email and I'll just send it to her and she will come in as you. But as far as Weiwei is concerned, Elias has been working really hard at getting internet set up there. And we should have some folks joining in who really want to take on that initiative and possibly open up the idea of a city rep, which is something that I know I want to discuss today. Is we should have a city rep for Weiwei because they are a friendship city and it's important to have a person dedicated to that role because we would like to build that partnership up. So that is something to discuss today. And I know Elizabeth hopefully will be joining us soon. Let's see, what else? Elizabeth is going to come in and Terry hopefully will join us soon too. I know that those are our major talking points today. I will say I reached out to Terry because my understanding of Plevin was a little murky, to say the least. I was wondering, we have a rep for Plevin, which I think Joan is filling right now, as far as I'm concerned. Is that correct?
Yes, as far as I'm concerned.
So with that being the case, I was curious about the status of Plevin as a sister city because it's sister city emeritus, but according to Terry, I believe we still have to keep Plevin on the books as like a sister city that we at least there's Terry. So keeping that in there. Hi, Terry.
Hi, Kate. Hi, everyone.
Hi.
Terry,
Nice to have you back.
Thank you. Thank you. Sorry, I am late. I was stuck at the doctor's.
We're glad you're here. So we were just talking about Plevin and
Yes.
everything you emailed me about regarding Plevin. Is there anything that you would like to share on that front?
just what, yeah, I mean, you probably covered it. I mean, the main thing is that, with turnover, anytime on the commission, I know the, information gets, it's like a game of telephone, right? The more you pass along a bit of information, the more it changes over time. So basically the main thing about Plevin is that the relationship has not been severed. It's basically just inactive. It's on hold. And so in terms of like any like official, place that you might list sister cities, it probably should continue to be listed. But anything like any programmatic activity, like, you could certainly choose not to offer grants for activities in Plevin. I think there's a lot of room for, deciding what that looks like until or unless something changes. And if, I'm happy to answer any questions beyond that.
Terry, is there if we list it, as you're saying we should, can we put something in parentheses and say, what's the proper word? Is it?
Yeah, the word
emeritus?
is the word is emeritus status. That's the Sister Cities International sort of word. That's the sort of process that we followed. And so that's probably the best, or, if you want to keep it simple so that it's sort of clear to, a layperson, you could just, put like inactive or something, currently inactive or something like that.
Is there anything, if we were to get a really great proposal related to Plevin, is there anything wrong with us accepting that proposal?
No, I think the only thing I would personally recommend in that case would be, that the chair or chairs just reach out to, before you were to fund something and assume it's going to move forward, maybe just do due diligence enough to make sure, they're prepared to do whatever on their end. I'm sure it would be very welcome. The main reason for the, creating the sort of inactive status is that there just hasn't been a lot of activity, and all the activity that there had been for, basically 8 or 9 or 10 years at least was our people going from Charlottesville to Plevin. And it's it was mostly a financial issue where they just don't have, it's like the poorest country in Europe. They don't have money to, fund exchanges to the United States. Under the previous administration, they might not have also even gotten visas. Probably that may be different now or could be different, but yeah, so it was our move to do that. And they have always been extremely gracious to anybody from Charlottesville that has visited. So I'm sure that they would be welcoming.
And Brian, you just indicated that we have someone in the audience or in the internet zone.
You do. You have one guest, Gary O'Connell, and you have our new Deputy City Manager, Ashley Marshall, listening in. But Mr. O'Connell, former city manager, has raised his hand and I think has some information about Plevin he might want to share.
Absolutely.
Yes, he was instrumental in that.
Would you like me to bring him into the meeting?
Please.
Okay. Gary, you're on with the Sister City Commission. Can you hear us? And you'll have to unmute.
Can you hear me now?
We can.
I just happenstance saw that you were going to be discussing Plevin today. Let me give you 1 minute of background on me and my interest internationally. I was on the original founding Sister Cities Committee, helped set up with the International Sister Cities, helped formalize Besançon, Poggio, Plevin, eventually Winneba. But I've been out of touch, I guess, so to speak, for maybe 10 years. But I've recently heard from the mayor of Plevin, George Spartansky, who has visited Charlottesville twice, albeit maybe 10 years ago. And a number of Charlottesville officials back then went to Plevin. I would like to see you keep some kind of status. I'm not asking for money. They just had their Plevin Day, which they honor all their sister cities, and Charlottesville is one of those. They have 26 sister cities, or at least that was my knowledge. And they have a Plevin Day every May 15th. So my hope is that I can visit there next year and continue and maybe rekindle the sister city relationship. I've been away from city government for a long time. I've purposely stayed away. But just seeing, I didn't know what emeritus meant, and I got concerned that maybe Plevin was just going to go under the radar, and wanted to kind of reconnect and share what I know about it and share my interest in trying to rekindle that and working with the commission, however I can best do that.
Well, thanks for joining us, Gary. And if you do plan on doing that next year, absolutely let us know. We would love to hear about the experience. And that's an incredible number of sister cities for Plevin. That is a lot to keep up with. That's quite a bit. But yeah, thank you for, joining us and talking about that, though, especially as somebody who has been involved with our commission since its beginnings. That is a very, it's a meaningful experience, and we really value your input. So yeah, you're welcome to join in and chat with us at any point if you have more to share on that. But we totally appreciate that. And I think Terry covered that emeritus doesn't mean it's totally cut off. It just means that we are not actively pursuing particular endeavors at this point, but it certainly doesn't mean that, really awesome opportunities are off the table.
Kate, if I could just come in, thanks, Gary and Terry. Also, just wanted to share that pre-COVID, we had received a strong grant application for a Charlottesville High School exchange to Plevin, which the commission had tentatively approved, subject to some more discussions with the city schools. But there was, I think, a lot of excitement and general support for that, that opportunity. This most recent grant cycle, we deprioritized Plevin and added Wayway as a new friendship city, with the hope that we would receive some proposals focusing on building that relationship. But I just wanted to note that there was some demand within our community and the high school to build that relationship and have an exchange with Plevin. Thanks.
Thanks, Amanda.
And if I may, Kate, before you move on, so I will have to see how that that seat on the commission will work as far as the city being inactive, but whether or not we still maintain a representative for Plevin. So I'll have to get back with you on those details.
Thanks. And
Kina, just for, if you don't mind, I'm just saying, Kate, Kina, I think it had been decided in the past, you should certainly go through whatever process, that if it was inactive, I think that there would not be a representative, throughout whatever time period
Makes
that
sense.
was. But that's just, I'm just giving you that background.
Okay. And then I'd have to look back through my notes, but I believe the commission voted to make Plevin move it to emeritus status.
That is correct.
So you
Yes.
guys would need to vote on that.
We did that vote in the past.
Mhm.
And Mayor Walker signed a letter that was sent to the mayor of Plevin.
Okay. And again, emeritus just means kind of in holding.
Yep.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
That'll work.
what about the process on this note of getting a representative for Wayway? Is that something that we would just vote on, or would that be a city council vote type thing?
So the last time I discussed that with Kina, it sounds like the relationship still needs to be officially established. So I know that there was a letter sent from our city manager, I believe, to maybe the mayor of Wayway. But I believe there's a certain procedures that have to be followed in order to officially establish that relationship, and that has to happen before council would appoint someone
Gotcha.
to represent the city.
Yeah, I wrote to the mayor maybe a couple of weeks ago asking for some sort of like
Yeah.
document confirmation. So maybe I'll just reach out to them again and see if we can get that ball rolling, because it'd be
Okay.
helpful to have a rep for that. Thanks, Max.
Yeah.
Welcome, Elizabeth. Thanks for joining us. First off, do you have any updates for us on Besançon?
Hi there. Sorry to join you late. Before I do update, Brian and Max, I hope if you're listening, yet again this month, I never received the link to join the meeting today. And I'm sorry I didn't catch it until literally the last minute. I was able to join in the meeting from the city government website, but there must be something happening with the email that you have for me. And I would like to provide you with an alternate email address that you can use from now on when you're sending invitations for the virtual Sister City Commission meetings.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Yeah, if you'll put it in the chat, I'll make the update now.
Okay, and so this is, it's not my primary email address, but it's a straight Gmail address and I never have problems with it.
Okay.
And I'll put that in the chat. Let's see, just to you, Max?
Yeah, I'll get it to Brian.
All right. Okay, great. And just make sure you got that. Okay.
I did, thank you.
Great. Okay. So starting to see a little movement in terms of our Besançon, Charlottesville sister city relationship. I've been in touch with a teacher from the Besançon area. Damon, this is the email that you forwarded me, but he actually reached out to me directly as well. He got my name. And we are setting up a virtual conversation later this week so I can get to know him a little bit. And he had visited Charlottesville in 2013 with a delegation of high school students. And my understanding is he teaches history and geography. And I believe when I look back at the links that he sent me, that visit focused on the history of enslavement. And so they did various things in and around Charlottesville, but they also went to Washington and they went up to Philadelphia and they went to New York. And he's proposing something slightly different, more of a sports activity competition kind of exchange. So I'll keep you posted on that. That might be sort of our first real exchange to be put in the pipeline for post-pandemic when travel restrictions are lifted. Otherwise, I'm maintaining contact with our Besançon officials. In fact, finally, there has been a new hire and they have hired their chief or their director of international relations. So I received notification about that and will be sending a reply letter to her this week. And I'm reaching out to local teachers who have been the primary contacts for organizing student exchanges to see what schools may be planning as early as fall of 2021 for any exchanges with schools in Besançon. And I believe that brings you up to speed on my Besançon report.
Wonderful.
Thank you. Questions? Anybody have questions I can answer?
One teacher that I know is probably interested. He's done travel to Besançon on their way to other things in the past with Charlottesville high school students is Matt Shields. I don't know if
Yes, he's on my list.
Awesome. Okay.
But he usually does, this is with the Bacon Club at CHS, and he usually does that in the spring of every year over spring break. So my assumption all along has been that he probably wouldn't be looking to renew that until, and he also only does it every 2 years typically. So my guess is he's going to be very keen to take a group of students over next spring.
Yeah.
So he's on my list, and I know him, and I will be certainly connecting with him. There's some other teachers I need to get to first, because there's sometimes have been exchanges in the fall. I'm not really, I'd be surprised if there are any exchanges that get going, because France is still, the COVID numbers are still really bad in France. And in fact, my understanding last time I checked is that France has pretty restrictive borders right now. But that could change. So we'll see.
Thanks, Elizabeth. Any other questions for Elizabeth about any of that?
And did you already approve the minutes? Are there any corrections I need to make to those minutes? Because I was the minute taker last month.
No. We approved them. They were fabulous. Thank you. Well, if you don't mind continuing, Elizabeth, we skipped over your portion that was on the agenda that I know you wanted to chat with us about and just bring up on the spending guidelines. And Terry, you might be very helpful in this matter. Thank you for being here. So there's Elizabeth, you can introduce us to this, as you did a lot of sleuthing through documents. So thank you.
I did. So after last month's meeting and the discussion that we had about discretionary funds for each city rep, and several of us, I think, had poked around in the documents on the shared drive to try to determine if there was any sort of official documented guidelines for this $1,000 that it's earmarked for any representative, any sister city representative to request to be used for various things. And that's the money that Nana asked us to approve last month's meeting to cover shipping costs, reimburse the Charlottesville-Winneba Foundation for shipping costs for the medical supplies that were supposed to go over ahead of the delegation that's there now. So anyway, after that, I offered to do some additional sleuthing. I offered to Kate and Damon to do some additional sleuthing just to try to see if we could, and I reached out to Terry, and she was gracious enough to talk with me about her memories of the issue of the commission drafting and approving discretionary spending guidelines. And she also checked with the former finance chair on that. And so I've spent a fair amount of time on our shared drive, and I will screen share. Do I have permission to screen share a timeline that I've created or not? Am I allowed to do that?
Yeah, yes, I just turned that on.
Yeah. Now I've also placed a copy of this document in the budget and finance materials folder on our drive. I hope, Michael, I'm not stepping on your toes doing that, but it seemed like it was the logical place to put it.
That's great.
And so really briefly, what I wanted you to know is that based on the minutes and the agendas that are available to us on the drive, this discussion of discretionary spending guidelines has been going back, or started, it seems to me, as long ago as the January meeting in 2016. So I've written the language that's lifted directly from the minutes of that meeting. I do not find any follow-up information to determine if those conversations happened, but I assume that they did, because later in the next year, in August of 2017, Leah Hicks, who was the finance chair at the time, actually drafted a first draft of Sister City Commission spending guidelines. They are to be found if anyone wants to go look at them. And I think they're really pretty thorough and comprehensive. And I feel like we probably all should know about them. They're also in the budget and finance materials folder on the drive, along with this second document, spending guideline topics to include. In the August 2016 retreat, the issue of spending guidelines came up. So you can see the language that I lifted from the minutes of the retreat. And then in August of 2017, in advance of the Sister City annual retreat, which was on the 29th, Leah Hicks drafted some proposed guidelines, and there was a discussion in the retreat 2017 of them, I believe, or of spending guidelines. Then following the retreat in 2017, it looks like Leah went back with whatever suggestions or modifications might have been recommended. And she drafted a second draft of spending guidelines, which has a date of November 29th, 2017. So in August, during the retreat, it was discussed, this is 2017. At the September monthly meeting, it was discussed. There's the language for that were lifted from the minutes. In November 2017, Leah created a second draft. It was not distributed to the commission until the meeting in February of 2018. And there's the language lifted straight from the minutes for that meeting. She distributed the spending guidelines. There was a conversation, re-emphasized committee goals, and there was a she requested a written update for the March meeting. And there the paper trail stops. I find no further mention of a vote, of updates, of conversation, of discussion about this in any meeting minutes or retreat minutes since February 2018. When I spoke with Terry about this and she spoke with Leah, they both recalled that the spending guidelines were adopted. However, I can't point to a date or documentation that occurred or when that occurred. However, it's still a very viable document. It does not include, by the way, anything about a $1,000 a year set aside that would be available for any or all Sister City reps to request. So that would be the document in which I think we would want to add or amend if we are committed to codifying that and making it official instead of just common practice, which it looks to me like it's been common practice going back many years, because you can sort of see references to it in various sets of minutes along the way. But if we want to go ahead and commit to that as an annual set aside, as a subject, of course, to commission approval and a vote. But if we want to codify that, it seems to me that these guidelines that Leah spent a fair amount of time drafting and revising are the logical place for us to do that. And perhaps the conversation we need to be having is to pick that back up, to go ahead and decide if they're still relevant, these guidelines, if they need additional work at this time, even if they were voted on and adopted before, because we don't have documentation of that. My guess is we need to vote on them and adopt them again. So that's what I have to share with you today. And the missing April 2018 meeting minutes are not missing. I found them. They were just in a different place. So the only meeting minutes that were missing, the only agendas and meeting minutes that were missing, if they were actually even created, would have been from January and February of 2020, when I wasn't even on the commission. And I don't know if the commission met. Of course, we know we didn't meet from March on, so there are no agendas and no minutes, but I thought there might have been meetings in January or February. And if so, those agendas and minutes have not been added to the drive.
We did meet.
So I'm happy to take questions or comments.
Yeah, can I jump in?
Jump away.
Good, incredible sleuthing and organizing, Elizabeth. You are dangerously close to showing your secretariat or secretarial proclivities, I'm sorry to say. I think Tammy was our last secretary, and Kate, you may remember her minutes were in a different place, and I don't know if that ever got resolved, but if it didn't, you might want to reach out to her, somebody might want to reach out to her and see whether she can cough those up. I'm pretty sure she was the one who would have taken them, and we did meet in those months.
January and February of
yes.
2020. Yeah.
Yes. And going back to, as Elizabeth said, yes, Leah and I both remember those guidelines finally being adopted, but I think Elizabeth's on the right track in terms of if there's not a record of it, you all can review that document, have a discussion about it, make any edits that you see fit, and take a vote on it, and make it your own. That might be, at this point, the most efficient course of action. Then the only other thing I would say about those guidelines and about the discretionary or the city, sorry, I had turned my video off. The sort of city representative discretionary funds is those things are related, the spending guidelines document and that part of the budget. But that's only a piece, of course, Elizabeth, you realize this, of that spending guideline document. That was really drafted to kind of take care of all kinds of questions and things that had come up and different ways of doing things, and everybody not sort of sure about how we do what. And so, that's sort of meant to be kind of a guiding document. The city representatives discretionary funds is a budget item, like a line item of the budget. In the same way you would decide, we're going to put $3,000 towards the grants committee this year. It's just like that. So it's like if I'm looking at my household budget and I'm making a household budget and I say, okay, my utilities can be $500 a month and my eating out budget is $75 a month and, whatever. So it's really part of that process, part of that budgeting process, and whether or not you want to have those things as a line item in your budget. Or if you just want to have it be whenever a city representative has a need or desire, to do some discretionary spending, that they bring it up and it just comes out of the general pot of money. Either way, the process should still be followed, just meaning like, Elizabeth as the Besançon rep doesn't just get to spend however much it is without coming to the committee in whatever is an appropriate amount of time beforehand and presenting her desire and having room for conversation and you all voting on it. So, it all would follow that process. So it's really just a preference about whether you all want to kind of break that out as part of your budget, or just have it be that anytime a city rep has an expenditure that they want to bring to the table, they can. The reason that we sort of put it in that, is we were trying to create a budget and sort of saying, okay, $1,000 is a good enough amount of money to take care of some sort of project or expenses of a visit, and anything, we're sort of setting that money aside so you have it to spend. It was kind of a benchmark, if that makes sense.
I have a question. Terry, thank you. And Elizabeth too. Thank you for all that work, all that digging. Please forgive me if you said this, Terry, and somehow it didn't land. Are we learning that it's absolutely not okay or possibly okay to allow for something like $1,000 for each city every year that does not have to be formally requested, and the reason given? Do we have to have some sort of procedure or policy, or is it okay to have a budget line item that reads $1,000 each year per city? I shouldn't say it this way, but like no questions asked, or you do not have to put it in a purchase order, so to speak.
Sure. I think that is a question you all might have to have a conversation about, along with Kina and Max and, maybe the city attorney. Like, I'm not, that would be kind of a city finance policy discussion. My understanding has always been that expenditures really need to be made on a reimbursement basis, unless the clerk's office, makes a purchase on our behalf, like using the city credit card, But this, there is a finance department in the city. It has policies. I think they're pretty stringent, and so it would just be you all needing to make sure whatever you decide, doesn't break those rules. Just to use Nana, the example of Nana, and wanting to put money towards a shipment of supplies, and that's something that would come up most years. That's fine, right? Nobody thought that was. I don't ever recall anybody thinking that was a bad expenditure. But would it be a good idea for Nana or anybody to just be able to spend that $1,000 without you knowing and sort of okaying it? Like, that's a lot of money, and you all do have a fiduciary responsibility with these public funds. So I would just say, you have to decide what you all are comfortable with in conjunction with whatever the city's policies are around that. And so you might need to take it up the line a little bit to figure that out.
Well, and I don't think that, since we've been here, that anyone has gone to an expense like that without coming to us.
Right.
I think Nana did come to us about it. He didn't just go out and spend the money and then say, here's my receipt.
Right. And that's because that's always been the way we did it. And if you want to do it differently, I would say you just have to do your due diligence and make sure that makes sense and doesn't violate a rule.
Right. And what got my attention about that was probably through my own fault, maybe not having done enough of my own orientation to the documentation when I came on the commission. But, I didn't know when I started that there was this kind of set aside, there was this kind of tradition of setting aside money like that for a city rep to request to use towards something that's going on as an exchange or an activity or whatever it is, a project with a sister city. So I went looking for the documentation that said, oh yeah, that's a part of what happens if you're a city rep. And in trying to orient myself to having that discretionary money so I could better appreciate, whether that was a responsibility of, part of what was budgeted for me, I just didn't find the documentation anywhere. I didn't find sort of I didn't find it, as an explicit part of spending guidelines. And then when I did find these spending guidelines, what's interesting about them is that they do spell out very clearly things, for example, about the commission budget allowing, of course, setting aside a certain amount of money to send a city rep to the sister city every other year. And so naturally I looked for, whether or not then this additional sort of pot up to $1,000, what that had been set aside for and what that was being made available for. So that's where my confusion was, and so why I decided to spend some time trying to understand how much of that was just sort of done in practice, and how much of that was part of the budget development process, and to what degree that, like you asked, Adrian, is just at the discretion of an individual rep versus really has to meet city guidelines for spending. Maybe Max wants to weigh in on that.
So I was just going to say that Keena and I have talked about this, and much of Keena's thoughts align with a lot of what Terry just said. She does suggest that maybe the board adopt a budget annually and then develop like a spending plan, if that's the route you choose to go as far as allocating certain funds for different sister cities. The only hesitation there, though, is if you don't receive the $15,000 allocation from the city every year. So her final suggestion was to maybe just allocate funds based on requests. So as they arise, then you determine whether or not you approve them and spend in that way versus, predetermining an amount that may not be guaranteed.
I think that might be the right way to go, especially year by year. Some, I don't know, depending on certain initiatives or whatever, one city might request more one year and request nothing the next year. And so it's sort of, yeah, that might be the way to go.
Well, and that's that's where we currently are, right?
Yeah. Would this be something, so I know that we have our subcommittee meetings next Monday. And I know that finance is one of those. Perhaps this could be a topic for the finance subcommittee, which Michael's on there. I forget who else is on there. Damon?
I know I'm on 2 of the other ones. I know I'm on grants and education, and I don't remember if I'm on finance technically, but I think I've been to the meetings before.
And when we did
I think Michael's the only, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. When we did our last working session, I believe it was Kate and Damon and I and Max.
I think that was it, yeah.
And we did put a question on the budget as to whether or not to have a placeholder for money for, travel and other things, but we didn't really answer that question. I think if we were to do an amount that doesn't require prior approval from this group, that it'd be a much smaller amount than $1,000. But, and then, let the larger requests come in as needed. But we did put, line items in the budget for, right now there's no money allocated to them, but there's line items for program and travel related expenses for each of the sister cities.
So maybe that's something, oh, go ahead. So maybe that's something maybe next Monday we can work on putting together that budget and considering some options that the commission can vote on in our next meeting as far as that spending is concerned, and then put that into the guidelines after that. Would that be a good scenario? I don't know what the right option is as far as like, should all purchases be approved by the committee, or is that just like a lot of extra work or a lot of extra hoops to jump through for small purchases? But as far as I know, has anyone made a particularly small purchase for the commission?
The only one that's gone through in the last 6 months would be the website renewal fees that went through automatically. But those were already budgeted for on a different line item. But there are no other expenses like that.
And Terry, historically, have there been like, has it been something where it's been like little tiny things, or has it been mostly like large like a travel expense or something?
Yeah, I think anything that was like a recurring thing, like Michael's just saying, like, you know, the fees for website or fees for the, you know, membership to SCI, things that, you know, like are discussed and budgeted in advance. And when you pass the budget, you're essentially voting on that expenditure. I think that's all fine. Anytime something came up, you know, that was, you know, the Festival of Culture is asking for, you know, money to sponsor the festival, that, you know, we would vote on. You know, Elizabeth is, you know, invited to go to Besançon for Bastille Day and represent Charlottesville. You know, you can allocate, you know, funds for that trip, or, you know, anything like that we would vote on. I think it's fine if you want to have some sort of small amount, you know, I don't know, somebody comes into town unexpectedly, you know, from the Sister Cities group in Norfolk, and you and Damon have lunch with that person and you submit your receipts. Not sure that would need to be voted on, you know, if we're talking about $25, you know, but I think you all would have to decide sort of what amount of money would be, you know, would be reasonable. And I'm sure the city also has some sort of guidelines about, you know, about amounts of discretionary funds, I would think, you know, like for business trips or something, there must be some guidance there.
So I don't mind putting you or Damon in contact with our city attorney if necessary, because we've had this discussion with her as well pertaining to your budget. And so she may be able to just provide some guidance if you guys need that. It'd be helpful.
That would be fantastic. Thank you, Max. If you could put her in touch with us, if we can do that before our finance committee meets, then maybe we can have a good idea of what number to possibly put in there as that number. And then have the group, you know, vote on that in our June meeting. That might be a great option that we can all agree upon. Elizabeth?
And do separately, do we want to circulate the working draft, the second draft of those spending guidelines that that Leah created in 2018? Do we want to circulate those amongst ourselves and review them and have any discussion about them, and potentially do, perhaps as Terry suggested, you know, re-engage with them, make revisions if we feel they need to be made, and then vote on them at some future meeting?
We could certainly do that for our next meeting. I put a link to them in the chat, so if you check your chat, you should see them in there. But what we can do, I can throw it as an agenda item on our next meeting. So after we have a chance to talk about, you know, the subcommittee meetings, we could bring it up as a topic, and I can send it out again in a copy a week in advance so folks have a chance to really read through it and get a good sense of it. And we can discuss what we would want to change or edit or keep to that in our next meeting.
Right now, it does have track changes turned on. So, I mean, what you see if you open it up in Google, their thing of Word, is that it has a lot of, you know, edits and notes from Leah. I don't see anybody else's name on there. We may have to translate this into the native Google format, because this might not work with Word because it's a Word document right now. But we should just be able to make notes in there or comments in there to say, you know, I think we should change this, or I think this is fine, or things like that.
I think I should clarify, the city attorney will probably be more so giving you advice to make sure you stay within those guidelines. What number you land on will be totally up to you.
Thank you.
Okay.
But it's good to have that person to talk to, I feel like, when it comes to this. So thanks, Max.
Yep.
Now we're down to the final minute.
I would,
Yeah.
Sorry.
Go ahead, Adrian.
I was just thinking it would make sense for whoever does meet with the city attorney to look at those guidelines first, so that you can ask, key questions, or if any issues come up that she shares that interface with what's on those guidelines. We can be, ahead of the game kind of with the editing of it.
Totally. I know I'm interested in going. Damon, are you interested in going to this meeting with our?
Going, like, actually,
Like discussing with.
yeah, sure.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, if anyone else would like to join us or have any questions, what I can do is tomorrow I'll send the minutes out to folks and we can share this document with the group and say, take a peek. Do you see any, if there are any questions you have, anything you would like to bring up for our city attorney? We're going to be meeting with her at a time to be determined. Let us know if there's anything you want us to clarify or cover. We're going to do that. And if you want to join, you're welcome to. Good. Awesome. Yeah, I think that's a great idea, Adrian. So we can do that. Anything else that we would like to bring up?
Do we have a secretary? Maybe that was discussed and I missed that part too.
That would be fantastic if we did. I nominate Elizabeth.
I second that nomination.
I
All in favor?
thought Adrian was going to give that some real thought, but she said, no way, Jose.
She gave it
Yeah.
thought.
You'd be so good.
Is someone gonna do it? Maybe? No, still thinking?
I would be willing to take that responsibility on. It's a 1-year appointment, so I'm not committing myself past the renewal next summer, right? My one concern is going to be in future, if there is a lot going on with our Besançon, sister city relationship that I may have to pass that baton. I could see that there may come some future point where I won't be able to fulfill my secretary responsibilities as promptly as I would like if I've got lots of other stuff happening. But right now, there's not really that much happening. So I will be happy to take on the role of secretary to finish out our current term.
And so that's just a couple more meetings, right? When does our current term finish?
July, is that or what are we considering the beginning of when we all started meeting again? I mean, I was appointed in July, I think, so.
I'm not sure.
It says in the bylaws that this is a 1 year. The officers serve for 1 year with the option to renew. So I don't know if that's the calendar year or if that's a financial year. Terry can answer that question.
I can only tell you what we used to do. So we used to do the election of officers at the retreat, which is where I think we did the election of officers for this round.
Right.
So
That's right.
I think that was in September, but I can't quite remember. I'm sure you have notes about that, Kate and Damon. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but again, that's just what we used to do. That doesn't mean you all have to do it that way.
Well, the retreats look like they're generally in August, but our retreat was in September.
Right.
Yeah, we've done them depending, sometimes August, sometimes September. Usually August is kind of better because the actual fiscal year, starts on July 1. So you're a little closer to that when you're talking about that current year. But again, it just was always a matter of schedules.
Well, I'm happy to serve until the point at which we would be electing officers. And if that's going to be our retreat this coming August or September, either one of those is fine. I'm happy to serve out the remainder of this this term until we get to that event as secretary, and then we'll see. If you're pleased with my job.
shall we nominate? Is that how it's going to work? Or are we going to nominate nominate Elizabeth as role of?
Unless maybe I need to leave and you have discussion about me for some reason. I don't know if that needs to happen or not.
Can I just nominate and someone second me? Would that work? As this role? I nominate Elizabeth as secretary of the Charlottesville Sister Cities Commission until our next,
For the remainder of this.
for the remainder of this time until our next retreat, when we vote again.
I second that.
I'll second that.
Ooh. All in favor?
You can have it, Mike.
All in favor?
Aye.
Need a verbal
All
aye.
opposed? All opposed? Well, you're stuck with it now, Elizabeth. Thank you.
Okay, but who's taking, who is it that's taking minutes today?
Me.
Okay.
Thanks,
So-
Damon, and thank you, Elizabeth.
Damon.
Yay.
You're welcome.
Oh,
They won't be
Ah.
nearly as good as everyone else's, but
thank you so much. That is fantastic. And Elizabeth, you are going to do a stellar job. I know it. You're already doing a lot in this group. So thank you. We appreciate it so much. Speaking of roles, I've spoken with Damon about this already, but I have recently accepted a position in Washington, D.C., and I am moving. So, sorry. I will no longer be able to keep this.
Congratulations on your position.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm very excited. It'll be exciting. But that being said, I will no longer be a resident of Charlottesville. And so my role with the commission will be coming to a close after next month, as far as like me living in the city. So we don't have to make any decisions now, but yes, I wanted to let you all know. And just for the folks who are here, I will talk to them about it in our next meetings. But it has been such a pleasure to bring this back up during COVID. And it's been awesome working with Damon and all of you. And I will be here for the subcommittee and the June meeting. But, you know, if you would like to jump into the role of co-chair with Damon, it is something. It is fun.
Well, very
Kate, I
good
want to
luck to
thank
you.
you. Yeah, I want to thank you for really carrying the torch this past year, and you've done such a fantastic job. And I know I don't know where we would be without you. So I really appreciate you. And
Yeah, thank you,
on
Kate.
behalf of each one of us, thank you.
Well, thank
Yes.
you. And
Thank you, Kate.
I know that as a non-member but volunteer person, I can still hang out with you guys in this virtual environment. It makes it very easy. And I do plan to continue on building our work with Wayway. I think that we've kind of got a little bit of momentum cooking here, and I don't want that to stop. So I'm happy to add to the discussion whenever y'all need me. But I will be here for the subcommittee meeting next Monday and the June meeting. But if you're interested in taking a leadership role alongside Damon, it is. It's my dog. She's excited too. So yeah, but just thank you
Tell
all
us
so much.
what the position was.
Sure. They just announced, I've known for 2 months, but they officially announced it on Friday. So the program is the Albert Einstein Distinguished Educator Fellowship. So I'll be a fellow working in, so the fellowship works with federal offices in DC, and my placement is with the Smithsonian's Air and Space Museum. So I'll be building education programming with them for a year.
Oh, how cool. And you'll be moving up there?
Yeah, we'll be moving there this summer.
Wow, that's really exciting. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. It'll be an adventure for sure. So yeah, but thank you all so much. And I know
Congratulations.
Oh, thank you. It is very exciting. But I know we're 10 minutes over, and I just appreciate all of the work you all have done to make this stuff happen. So see you in less than a week on Monday. Not you, Terry. You don't have to come unless you want to. Do you? No. Yeah. No. No.
I'm actually going to be out of town next week, so but
It
you know,
doesn't
I'm
really
always
matter.
happy to answer any questions. And
Yeah. That's a great thing about Zoom. You can chime in from anywhere.
it is very true.
Tell
But
us
I'm
in
getting
Italy right now. Yeah.
I'm getting to go see my 93-year-old father for the first time in a year and a half. So my attention is definitely going to be there.
Good.
That's awesome.
Well, thanks for being here today. Really
Yeah,
appreciate it.
thanks, Terry.
Absolutely happy to.
Thank you all so
Thank you
much.
all.
All
Great.
right. We'll
All right,
see you.
everyone. See you soon.
Bye.
Bye.